If you ever find yourself in Elland, West Yorkshire, why don't you stop into the Fleece Inn for a nice quiet pint? And maybe, just maybe, you will meet one of the resident ghosts that linger there. Known as the most haunted pub in West Yorkshire, the Fleece has its first share of creepy tales. This particular pub dates back to 1610, making it over 400 years old. It started its life as a farmstead called the Great House, and it is believed that earlier, long-forgotten dwellings may have existed. There is evidence that the pub was separated into 3 separate houses around 1745. A tenant of one of the houses, a Mr. George Reddyhoff, is said to have provided ale for 3,000 troops who were marching to intercept Bonnie Prince Charlie. In 1782, prior to its conversion to an inn, the building was used as a vicarage, and the tenant was named Mr. Reverend Horton. Now, it's been documented that the upstairs room was rented out to a religious group, or probably more accurate, more like a cult, called the Thumpers. The Thumpers believed in praising God by jumping up and down continuously. Yes, you heard me right, jumping up and down continuously. It is said that the relentless jumping caused the floor to shake so much that a chair in the room started to bounce around. And it is said that long after the religious cult departed, the chair still bounces around of its own accord from time to time, to this very day. And that's just a little of the pub's history, but now let's get into some of the pub's more violent, grisly past. Legend has it that late in the 19th century, a fight started between 2 men in Elland town centre on market day. One of the men ran, and the other gave chase, eventually catching up to him at the Fleece Inn, where the fight continued, and it wasn't long before one of the men met his end at the bottom of the staircase, murdered by the other man. His blood spilled out all over the steps of the inn, leaving a deep red blood stain that which no amount of cleaning and scrubbing could ever remove. And there the blood stain remained, becoming a main feature in the bar and a creepy conversation starter for many, many years, until it was destroyed by workmen during renovations in the 1980s. The Fleece Inn also has its very own ghostly phantom, whose activity mainly manifested in the barn situated behind the inn. The phantom takes the form of a ghostly headless horseman who wears a long, dirty duster coat. Legend has it that at midnight every night, the headless horseman would fly out of the barn, sending the barn doors flying open as the decapitated horse driver would furiously ride the ghostly horses, which are also said to be headless, past the inn and into town, creating a strong gust of ice-cold wind through the narrow streets, or at least that's how the legend goes. In fact, it is said that whenever any of the locals feel a strong gust of icy wind go past them in town, they often comment, "There goes old Levery Coit," the name given to the headless horseman. So that's the local legends and the history covered, but what about the activity that has been felt in the pub in the most recent years? One landlady recalls placing 2 rows of champagne bottles on a shelf behind the bar and then retired to bed. The next day she discovered 2 of the champagne bottles smashed on the opposite side of the room. The strange thing is, the bottles that had fallen and smashed were placed behind the first row of bottles that still stood on the shelf, untouched. The pub also has a function room that staff have stated on many occasions to be icy cold, even though the heating is on, and the staff believe that this is down to the presence of a particularly unpleasant ghost who they have named the Grumpy Old Man. Now, the ghost of the man is described as being a little bit mean-spirited, pardon the pun. He is said to shove and push people around whenever they enter the function room. The landlady herself has actually gone as far as to name the ghost Harold, and she often describes him as being cantankerous. Harold likes to make his presence known by pushing members of the bar staff. He's also been known to launch objects such as chairs towards people who he decides to take a dislike to. He's also been told to throw the occasional glass of wine or beer. And sadly, there is also said to be a ghost of a little girl that haunts the rooms of the pub. Now, the ghost of the little girl, who the landlady has affectionately named Eleanor, has been seen all around the pub. And let's say if the pub has a wedding or a birthday party, she's often been seen playing with the balloons. The landlady's husband was very sceptical until the day when he was sat in the living room and he witnessed the ghostly apparition of Eleanor dash across the living room before vanishing before his eyes. Eleanor can also be seen from time to time looking out from numerous windows of the inn, although she isn't the only one. Now, the other ghosts that are said to reside in the inn are as follows. The owners claim that they have seen on many occasions a dark robed figure, not unlike a monk, who stands at the bottom of the bed and likes to watch the owners whilst they sleep from the dark shadows of the room. The spirit of a shepherd who may have lived in the pub when it was 3 separate houses. He is believed to be responsible for the trashing of many rooms in the pub. And also the ghost of a woman who was apparently impregnated by her father, who then murdered her. And people have also seen the ghostly apparition of a motorcyclist who is said to have died in a road accident back in the 1970s. Despite all this, the landlady insists that the spirits are not malevolent. Mischievous, yes, but she insists she does not feel threatened at all. The bar gets many tourists visiting year after year in hopes of seeing something otherworldly, and to say that the pub is lively is an understatement. For even in the dead of night when the bar is closed, the sound of ghostly voices and clinks of glasses can be heard, whilst the owners are both tucked up in bed. It would seem that the Fleece Inn is always open.